Masters of innovation.
Looking towards the future with anticipation, raising up the technological conversation from the east to the west and all across the nation. If knowledge is the cure, then we got the medication. We're the masters of innovation, the masters of innovation. We're the masters of innovation, the masters of innovation.
Welcome everybody to the Masters of Innovation. We're here with the cutting edge knowledge you need to understand the world you live in. As always, I'm Garrett Wagner, your entrepreneurial CPA channel host. And I'm joined by the man, some would say legend. He's now 35, he's a few years older. Joe Brunsman of CLP Brokers, one of the top cybersecurity experts in the accounting landscape. Joe, how you doing today?
Good. Just I've officially started my midlife crisis now that I'm 35. So I might have to go buy a Corvette or something. We'll see how it goes.
You know, Joe, since as your financial advisor here, Hertz has some phenomenal deals.
They do.
Corvettes through their bankruptcy proceedings. You should just get eBay that up tonight. Make that purchase tonight. What do you wait?
I did actually. I went on their website and I was poking around. They did have a couple Forerunners, but they were all like the SR5 models, so kind of like the base model. Mm-hmm. I feel like if I got a Corvette, I'd probably kill myself because I kind of have this addiction to speed and doing dangerous things, which is I've probably injured myself more times than I want to admit. I got to keep that horsepower down. I get myself into trouble.
I mean, maybe do a GoFundMe campaign to get Joe a Corvette for his 36th birthday. All right, Joe, all kidding aside, when coronavirus outbreak happened, we did an episode on kind of cybersecurity concerns when you went remote, when everything blew up. Now that things are starting to settle back down, people are coming back to their offices, I thought we could revisit this, get a little more serious now past your speed addiction, and talk about what are the cybersecurity concerns firms need to worry about as they kind of shift back from the virtual and bring everybody back.
So there's a number of ways to kind of attack that problem. I'd say really the first thing that the firms need to be concerned about is this just adoption of bring your own devices. So as firms start to get back into, say, the office environment, or they continue this work from home environment, understanding, okay, what really is our policy around bring your own device? Because there's actually layers below that make this really important. Obviously, the cybersecurity requirement is going to be huge. When people are utilizing their own devices, I have seen some pretty atrocious cybersecurity controls or total lack thereof around, you have exponentially more endpoints that could affect your network now and your network security. And, I've seen firms that are really specific and they're like, hey, we do not do bring your own device, BYOD, also known as bring your own disaster. You can only use firm approved devices. A lot of companies don't really have that option, so they're using personal devices. But then you got to think, okay, even beyond the cybersecurity stuff, there could be a legal hold on that personal device if that's part of a court case. Or how do you evidence a communication that's held on a personal device? Especially if a staff member leaves or they pass away or they move to some other department or they don't keep that text message, it just gets automatically deleted on their phone. That's probably where I would start is BYOD.
All right, so with that BYOD, bring your own device, I mean, that's been around for a long time. That's not a new concept. So it sounds like what you're really saying is, hey, this has been around there forever. It's time you actually thought about it and address the concerns and put a plan in place.
Yeah, 100%. Shocking the number of firms I've seen that they've just kind of fell into this routine of BYOD, and there hasn't really been a lot of thought around any sort of security controls or evidentiary controls around BYOD. But, we know now the statistics are proving this out. The bad guys are going after these devices. They're going after mobile devices. It doesn't matter if it's a cell phone. There's malware for cell phones. Contrary to popular belief, it's out there. And yes, it has gotten through, the Google Play Store and whatever the Apple equivalent is. So it's out there. So yeah, even firms have been doing this a while. Even if you think you got a hold on it, now is a better time than ever. Revisit those protocols in light of new threats. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and go from there.
And we almost do a whole episode on just BYOD, the conundrum, the history, all that. So, all right, so we got that. First, number one, BYOD, concerns, a plan in place, a policy. What else do firms need to think about as they move to reopen?
I would say a security assessment now is probably a really good time for a security assessment. That is a very kind of broad term that can encompass a whole number of things. But I would say if there was really ever a time where now you have this hybrid approach for a lot of firms that a lot of them haven't really dealt with in the past, a security assessment, this is a great time to try and bring in some outside third party, obviously vet them appropriately, understand what they're saying, right? Make sure you're getting what you want. Generally, it's kind of like a cafeteria approach where you can kind of pick and choose what you're going to do. Obviously, the more you pick, the more it's going to cost. But a security assessment very broadly is going to give you an idea of kind of where your security lies at the current moment and what your priorities should be to increase your security moving forward. And even being a former IT, I'll tell you this. Sometimes we're just staring at that problem so much that we kind of just lose the bubble. Like we just kind of forget that something exists, or we just become so comfortable with something that it's just very easy to overlook, some key area because we've always just done it that way. And maybe there's a better way now, but we can only know so much. So even as a former IT and a total nerd, it's always good to have somebody come in from the outside and give their opinion on it. Because at the end of the day, the IT department or your outsourced IT people, they shouldn't resist that. They should welcome that. Because if you're all playing on the same team, the end goal is to increase security, minimize the odds of a breach. Don't fall into the trap of, hey, we got this, because you don't got this.
All right, so they don't got this. They need to learn that. They need to be made aware. What else you got for us?
Audit your endpoints. This sounds very simple, but you need to know what is actually accessing your network. So you have to audit the endpoints. So that could be cell phones, laptops, remote PCs, in-office PCs, printers, smart thermostats. Hopefully you don't have any of that nonsense. But you need to get your hands on, okay, what are we starting with? Like what actually can get into our network? Because if you don't even know what those endpoints are that's accessing your network, well then obviously you can't control any of that. So audit the endpoints, figure out what's actually supposed to be accessing your network.
Makes sense. So Joe, it sounds like a lot of these as we move to kind of reopen is really to kind of look back inside your firm and get some cybersecurity best practices in place that you've been putting off.
Yeah, certainly. And it's, it's just one of those things where the world has changed. So logically, our policies and procedures from a cybersecurity standpoint, those are going to have to change as well. And so even if you were, we'll say, sake of argument, 100% compliant, 100% on board, you're doing everything you need to be doing before, the world's different. So now you're going to have to go back, reassess all that, and make sure that you're actually doing what you should be doing. Because if you don't, obviously there's plenty of bad guys out there that are going to take advantage of that.
And that's kind of the whole goal of cybersecurity to begin with. How do you provide a better depth of defense to keep your firm and your clients protected? That's what it's all about. As you reopen, as you kind of think, how do I get my firm back to whatever that new normal is, or back to whatever you want it to be and your team want it to be, don't get caught up in a cyber breach. BYOD, be on top of that, security assessment, and audit your endpoints. Those also like a lot of things you can help an outside IT company do, especially for the smaller firms. You can't do it all yourself. partner with someone in town that focuses on that, that's really good at that, that does it. And then maybe too, like you said before, then kind of maybe offer that to your clients.
Yeah, certainly. If you have that in-house expertise, you can do that dry run on your own firm. You can figure out what the stumbling points are. You can figure out, okay, what's your approach going to be, and then that's a great mechanism to go out and help your clients to make sure that they can avoid some of those same pain points that you experienced, and then move forward from there. And then probably the last thing I would add, being the insurance guy now, is make sure your cyber policy actually covers these, BYOD / remote endpoints, because there's not actually a promise that your cyber policy is going to cover that stuff. So that could be, it's very hard to broadly say or generally say where it's going to be, but generally it's kind of under the definition of a computer system. You have to know what that computer system is actually defined as in the policy, because maybe that does not necessarily include some remote device. That's the device that leads to a breach. You already had cyber insurance. Now you're hosed. Don't fall into that trap.
So with that, Joe, I think it's time to wrap up. And I think afterwards I can talk to you about C3's cyber policy and make sure we're covered from the BYOD side. So if you got questions on any of the cyber stuff we've talked about today, as always, reach out to Joe. He'll be happy to help. And as always, we challenge you today to take action to change the world. As Joe said last time, care about others and continue to invest in yourself.